Sometimes when doors have been closed in my life, God has opened new windows in answer to my prayers. So many ways I never dreamed of. I started writing my first book at Johnson Wax later in my career. Happened in a funny way. We had need overseas for our general managers to deal with a very difficult subject. Okay, and so what we did is checked around, and everybody said, no, you can't write that book. So I did. And the company had such success with it that it published it and it sold it around the world. I worked very closely with the chairman in some key roles, including the evaluation of performance of all the top executives. Traveled the world, trying to help general managers around the globe for the company. And my health started to really slip. And my doctor finally gave me instructions, said, you're going to have to step away. You know, either that or it's not going to be very good for you. So I wasn't sure how that was going to be. Sam Johnson wanted me to stick around as a consultant for a while. And so I did that. And I'm in my third month of at home, trying to decide which direction I'm going to go, thinking I'd maybe pursue some art some more. And I got a call from another CEO. And he said, hey, I hear you're not working anymore for your company. Can you come help me out? I turned him down 3 times, which is not a good thing to do. But on the 4th call, he just said, just come meet me, Ed, because I understand you've got disability. I understand your health's an issue. But I'd like you to come in, work when you want to, go home when you want to, say adios when you want to, and we can work out something good. And so he said, come meet me, and I did, and we became friends, very fast friends. And I worked for him for a number of years. And that spread, word of mouth, and pretty soon I'm traveling all over the country, meeting with CEOs all over the place, helping with their issues. That was really wonderful for about 10, almost 11 years. And about the 11th year, I'm down in Dallas, Texas, helping a big company there with a CEO, and I got very sick. They had to make special effort to get me home on an airplane, and somebody had to come meet me at the airport. And at that point, I had to make another key decision. The decision, a very difficult one, still had one in college. I always bills to pay, too early for Social Security benefits. And so I decided, you know, I've got to do something else. Well, I'm sitting around the house, and my son Jeff and my son Greg, almost at the same time, came up. They said, Dad, why don't you write about those stories you used to make up for us when you were disabled and you couldn't do any sports and you couldn't move around much? Remember all those short stories? And I kind of poo-pooed that and said, oh, come on. Who's going to be interested? And they said, well, we are. We still remember. So they started rattling off some of the titles. So, okay, I listened to them. I sat down and I started writing some of these stories up. And next thing you know, my son Greg said, hey, I'll help illustrate your cover. My son Don said, hey, I'll help illustrate your cover. So my sons Don and Greg and I did an illustration for the cover. The title is The Green Turkey and Other Holiday Classics. And what I did add to it are some stories for adults to make it a family book. Well, submitted to the publisher. I really didn't expect anything to come of it, but the publisher accepted it, and I had my first non-business book published. And that went over so well. And then again, the same two said, Pop, you know, you had that wonderful experience with 4 unusual pets. And I did. Years ago when I was a boy, I started out in South Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Shortly after I was born, we moved to Manitoba Avenue. And there it was kind of interesting because a creek that everybody loved ran right across the street. You know, the bridge was just to the right of our house. We had a lot of fun there watching the seasons change, watching the ice form on the river, all the beautiful things that happen when you see running water, fish, turtles, all kinds of beautiful things. Well, not too long later, we moved to the country in Oak Creek. We were the last house in Milwaukee County on Highway 38, just north of the Root River. There was nothing between our house and the river except open land. My dad had 37 acres of property. 7 acres of it were woodland, which was a delight for any child to play in. We also had the beautiful open fields. We could play baseball, hit the ball as far as we wanted to. We learned to appreciate the wildlife, the birds that flew, the seasons much more, no noise, clear skies at night. When you saw a rainbow, you really saw a rainbow, unfiltered by city lights. The country was a beautiful place for us to learn and start to grow up. The country wasn't always the easiest place for us either. The first year was very difficult for my family, lots of tough times. We all lived 7 people in one room for 1 year with a pot-bellied stove, no running water. Things kind of fell apart for Mom and Dad. But during that experience, we learned what was important, what made people work together, love each other more. Ask yourself what you would do if you were living in a house with one room that was operational. Your mom and dad had to work. You were the oldest child, and you had 4 siblings. What you learned to do are find things that were entertaining. We learned to invent games, to find things to do. We did a lot of drawing with each other. We made up stories to entertain each other, and we listened to the radio a lot. On the radio, one of the things we did is we often listened to the Rosary on Fridays. That was my start with learning to really love to do drawing, writing, and inventing. My family, my dad, mom, and 5 of us siblings went through a rather tough time for the family. And things were just starting to settle down. We lived out in the country. And at one time, I had 4 little baby creatures at the same time. And they happened within a week span that they all came to belong to me. I had 4 cardboard boxes in the basement. The little puppy slept in one. The kitten slept in another. The baby crow that I got from a friend from an abandoned nest slept in the next. And then a gosling in the 4th. The stories are amazing. If you can imagine 4 diverse creatures like that becoming close friends. Some of them are sad, some of them are funny, some of them are exciting. So I did write that book that my children asked me to do, put a picture of the crow on the cover, and it became quite popular very, very fast. Then I got to thinking about going into a different direction, to be more open from my heart about things that were happening with God in my life. And what motivated is that my son Don was hurt in a serious car accident. And amazing things happened with that journey. It was a race for life. And because they had to do major surgery for his heart, they found a major fault that was undetected, and had it not been detected because of the car accident, that could have been fatal for him. And there were a series of stories about people I knew and their encounters with asking God for help. My daughter Sherry, who adopted 3 children from China and from Korea, and how that came about. Another story about Padre Pio. Right when he was up for canonization, somebody asked for serious help with their granddaughter who was hit broadside in the car, and her journey back from what the doctor said was impossible. I thought, well, you know, I've got to be more open about God in our lives. So I wrote that book, and it's called Right Before Your Eyes. And the doctor, who was a heart doctor, proofed it for me. And he's kept it in his office ever since for people who come in. So I know he felt that was pretty accurate. Things were really starting to take off for my books. I had had my 4th interview on Channel 4's Morning Blend. I'd had 2 interviews on Channel 6 in Milwaukee. I had bookstores calling, wanting me to do book signings. I did a lot of writing, and it turns out that last year, 2017, I had 8 books published up to that point, and I only started seriously writing at the age of 70. Last year was a banner year for writing. I wrote the most important book that I feel I've written about my life. I got very personal about it, and the title of the book is Where is God? And I explore a lot of the different avenues where God has been present in my life. I wrote most of it while I was sitting on dialysis with my one free hand. The other, of course, is preoccupied with what they do. My son Jeff and my 10-year-old granddaughter Kira got together and wrote a book together called Labyrinth of Fantasies. We had published in June of 2017. And we had extensive television coverage, coverage around the country in different publications and newspapers. Looks like everything was ready to fly. And suddenly, as happens sometimes, a longtime publisher went out of business. So now I've got books out there. Most of them are available on iBooks and eBooks. The last two are not, because they didn't get that far yet. So if somebody's interested, you can find them on iBooks and eBooks. I turned to the art big time, telling stories big time, to have time with my family, to do things with them. But this whole creative journey never would have happened the way it happened, I'm sure, had it not been that I became disabled. I'll explain it this way. I wrote a lot of things that were happening as I was getting older, not knowing if I'm going to make tomorrow or the next year because of the health issues I had. Okay, and so I tried to write about that in the books. And the reason I did is one day I felt that I was thinking about the lepers, how there were 7 of them, right? If I got that counted right. But only one came back and said, thank you, God. So I think we all too often as people keep those things in our personal closet, and we ought to be telling people, hey, look what's happening